Pardon the interruption, but I'm Mike Wilbon. Tony, police are searching for someone who stole 2,000 peaches from an orchard.
I'm Tony Kornheiser, and in related news, if anyone's in the market for, a couple of thousand peaches, hit me up. I got them.
What would a peach go
peaches.
for? What is one peach? I mean, I would never put a peach in my mouth. Did I have?
I don't like peaches at all. I hate melons of any kind. I cannot stand bananas.
Okay with melons, peaches.
And I loathe pumpkins,
But you eat
so
pumpkin pie. Doesn't make sense.
Are you asking? I hate it. Are you saying that you want to know how much one peach costs?
Yeah, one peach. How much does that go for at the Safeway or the...
I'll take a guess. I'll just take a guess. $1.50, $2. I mean, I don't know because I wouldn't buy one, so I don't know. Welcome to PTI, boys and girls. In today's episode, Lionel Messi scores, the Orioles are rolling, and should the Angels become buyers rather than sellers? But we begin today with 36-year-old journeyman Brian Harman winning the British Open by 6 shots. Harman had the lead the last 3 days of the tournament. He finished 1 under in yesterday's round in an all-day rain. Wilbon, what do you make of Harman's win and his margin of victory?
It was great, Tony. The margin of victory is everything because there was no drama in the final round of the British Open. There was no particular drama all weekend in the British Open. No. He took the lead. He expanded the lead. He kept everybody a full leaderboard off him. Everybody got crazy when Jon Rahm had a great Saturday. That's all it was. It was a great Saturday. And Harman had a great tournament. He made every putt he looked at, it seemed, of 12 feet or less. And whether it was raining or not, he just was in full control. I mean, he seemed to take umbrage at some fan who got under his skin and use that to his benefit. I mean, everything he did was what you want to see a player do if you're rooting for that guy to win. So, I mean, kudos to him. I don't think it means anything particular. I don't think it means, we're going to go into next year and he's going to have momentum. No, it doesn't mean any of that. It means he won a major. He won a major championship, which most guys don't do.
Yeah, I largely agree with everything you said. There was no drama in it. And in fact, if somebody wanted to use the word boring, I'm not going to yell at them. But it is a tremendous tour de force by Brian Harman. Brian Harman is like 5'6". Brian Harman is not a star. Brian Harman is not telegenic. He's another guy on the tour at this point. He's got Jon Rahm coming at him. He's got Rory McIlroy coming at him. He's got the local favorite Tommy Fleetwood coming at him, and everybody thinks he's gonna blow up.
Yep,
everybody thinks he's gonna give it back, and he held them off. He slept on the lead in a major for 2 different nights. A major that I would tell you, Mike's the hardest one to win because of the weather, and he held up.
Yeah.
I mean, the statistic you were looking for is he made 59 out of 60 putts.
Come on.
10 feet and in.
Come on.
Mike, you and I couldn't make 3 out of 10. And that's what he did. And he had the greatest week of his life in a major, and not at the Quad Cities, and not at the John Deere, and not at the TPC in Hartford. So good for him. I mean, I as you know, I had a real interest in him because I had watched him win the Boys Junior at Columbia 20 years ago. He joins the list. It's a great list, Mike. People who have won the Junior and then went on to win a British Open. Here's the entire list. Tiger Woods, Johnny Miller, David Duval, and Jordan Spieth.
Pretty good.
I mean,
pretty good.
It's a wonderful thing. He bogeyed early on Saturday and Sunday and then birdied quickly after that.
Yeah.
Mike, in the rain, nobody was going to shoot 63 or 64. So all he had to do was shoot even. He shot 1 under. Mike, he was the only guy in the field to go under par 4 times.
Well,
good for him, right? I don't think he'll win another one. But good for him.
I was hoping that Fleetwood was going to put some pressure on him. That would have provided the really attractive drama.
Yes.
And we didn't get it. We didn't get it. So good for Harman. I don't know what this means going forward.
Yes.
People always want to, then conclude something bigger. Don't conclude anything.
No, well, what it means, he'll play in the Ryder Cup.
Congrats.
Good for him.
Yeah.
He'll play in the Ryder Cup. Yeah.
Let's move to soccer. And Lionel Messi's dramatic debut for Inter Miami on Friday night. I almost said Inter Milan again. Messi entered the game in the 54th minute, and with the game tied in stoppage time, buried a bending free kick into the upper left-hand corner of the goal to win it. Tony, how would you describe Messi's debut for Inter Miami?
There's only one word to describe it, and the word is spectacular, unless you want to modify it by saying very spectacular. Mike, I sat on this show on Friday. We were playing What's the Word? And I said that fans should have tempered
yeah.
feelings
I said controlled.
about his debut. You know, look, let's talk about what this means. Lionel Messi, if you owned Inter Miami, if you worked for Inter Miami, if you were on Inter Miami, if you coached Inter Miami, this is what you were praying for and you never thought it would happen. Messi was bigger than the moment, bigger than the game. He's bigger than the league. Whatever you're paying him, he just showed you what he's worth. I mean, this was, somebody sent me the Zlatan goal in his first game for the LA Galaxy. It's a lovely goal. But the Zlatan is not Messi. He's not.
No.
This is all you could ever have hoped for, right?
And that's why my word, if we were playing What's the Word, is dramatic. It was so dramatic, Tony. And I actually, kudos to shout out to my son for making me watch it. I wouldn't have watched it on my own. But to watch it happen, it was dramatic. That's why you watch sports. That's why sports pulls so many people in when other things that may be more important in the world cannot. Because you don't get this kind of drama. And you've got LeBron there, and he has his extended hug with LeBron, and you've got Serena Williams there. You got people, tweeting about the GOATs. I mean, Jordan and Ali weren't there. Those are my GOATs. But you've got this incredible thing where they come to see Messi, and he delivers in the way that like you said, it's scripted, is the only way that this happens. Yeah. And he does it in live time. And even, I didn't know, because I don't watch Inter Miami, I didn't know they had pink uniforms. And they have a really small stadium, 19,000. And with 19,000 people, maybe he could even sell it out in Miami, where they don't pay attention to much of anything, even the Heat, every night.
Yeah.
But maybe he can sell out that place every night, and you can reproduce the drama. Don't they play again tonight, I think?
He will sell it out every night. Look, this is, if I'm not mistaken, MLS games are broadcast on Apple Television, which is a paid service. How many thousands or hundreds of thousands or even millions of people around the world saw that and signed up for Apple within 24 hours? He moves the needle, Mike. I don't know that there's an American sports star that moves the needle quite like that. That was amazing.
Well, you know what, Tony?
Moved to baseball.
They play tomorrow. What? Why don't you watch? I'll get an Apple TV guy over to your crib tonight.
Yeah. Tell him to come over and give me that for free.
Yeah.
Good, a box of that.
$50.
We moved to baseball. The Baltimore Orioles just took 3 out of 4 from Tampa Bay in Tampa Bay. The O's now have the best record in the American League. They're 23 games over 500, and they've won 12 of their last 15. Wilbon, do you now see the O's as the team to beat in the American League?
No, not because I'm not dumb. And we talked about playing dumb or dumber. That would be dumber.
The game is who's more stupid. That's the game you wanted.
I mean, come on. Did people learn nothing from Tampa? They learned nothing? Stop making declarations. It's July. Watch the games. Enjoy the games. Revel in the O's. If that's your deal. A lot of people who live around you and me, when they didn't have baseball in Washington, they went up to Baltimore and they adopted the O's. When the O's were great, and then the O's fell on hard times, and now they're back. We don't know if they're great again. But they're entertaining, and it's worth watching. But no, the whole thing runs through Houston. That's where it runs, particularly the American League. It runs through the Houston Astros, Tony. So no, they're not the favorites now. They're not going to be favorites unless they go into October ahead. And even if they have home field advantage against the Astros, I'm not making them the favorites over the Astros.
So here's where we disagree, and we disagree legitimately. To me, the team that is on top of the American League East is the favorite to win. The American League East is a killer division. To me, it's the best division in all of sports. So I do make the Orioles the favorite right now. And I understand that until the end of last year, they never even had a winning record in 100 years. The 4 previous seasons that went to 162 games, they lost at least 108 games. But baseball is 162. It's not 17. It's not 82. I know that you're fond of saying that in the NBA you have to lose before you can win.
Yes.
I'm not sure that's true in baseball.
It's not.
I think if you get to 120 or 140 and you're the best, you can be the best.
Yeah.
And you don't have to suffer those hard times. Now, they have a run differential that isn't very good. It's
like
48. Texas is plus 151, and Tampa Bay is plus 144, and Houston is
I
plus
don't care
55.
about
Your
run
Cubs,
differential.
your Cubs are plus 41, and they're 3 games
in
under
the National
500.
League, I think.
Yeah, so I don't know that is a determinant. The O's have great young players, and I do make them the favorite now. I do.
Tony, let me ask you something real quickly before we move on. What division are the Houston Astros in? Are they in the NL East? Are they in the AL East? Oh, wait.
AL West.
They've won more than once, and they're not in the AL East. They're not along I-95. They do all right.
I'm saying this year, Mike. I'm saying this year,
right.
they're the greatest division
take Houston.
ever. Okay, let's take a break. Coming up, should the Angels go from trade deadline sellers to buyers?
And was a Brewers rookie better at the plate or in the field in his major league debut? Strohs.
By the way, I watched all of the British Open. I thought Harman won it on number 12 on Friday when he chipped in. He was looking at double bogey. And I thought he was great
that was too
after
early.
that.
That was too.
Time to find out what's popping with the plebes. The mailbox still looks good, Wilbon. The mailbox doesn't age. You
Still
and I
sounds
age.
good.
The mailbox
That voice is
does not
great.
age. After a 6-3 homestand and another homer from Shohei, should the Angels actually become trade deadline buyers?
Yes. Why not? They're close enough to want to make a run. You want to impress Shohei that you should keep him, that he should stay, then surround him with some more talent. That's how you do that. And of course, they should be buyers, not sellers, Tony. The Angels, at least they ought to have enough when Mike Trout comes back. I realize that may take as much as another month. I don't know what your boy, the former great national, when he may actually play again and be out there.
He doesn't play.
But Tony, yes, they should be buyers. They ought to be looking to stalk some people and run down some people and at least get in as a wild card in those AL playoffs. Anthony Rendon.
Love to disagree with you. Wouldn't disagree with you one word of that. This is an obvious thing to do. The only way they can keep Shohei Ohtani is to make the playoffs. Everyone up to, but not including Mike Trout, should be offered to any team out there for somebody you want. You got to buy. You got to spend money to make money in this particular case. If they trade Ohtani, they look like fools.
Shame
They're all
for
the
them.
way down to the wire now. Spend what you have to spend to put a team out there. I think they're 4 back of Toronto, and they are at 3
going
games
to
with Toronto
too.
this weekend.
Yeah.
Yeah, they got 3 games. I mean, you become a buyer. Honestly, anybody who thinks anything different is
Tony,
they
the
don't know what they're doing.
comparisons with Babe Ruth keep coming. Well, what happened when the Red Sox sold Babe Ruth? We've talked about
Didn't
it
work out.
for 120 years about selling Babe Ruth.
Wasn't good.
Huh?
Wasn't good. Wasn't a great move, as we like to say. Did Brewers outfielder Sal Frelick have a better game at the plate or in the field in his major league debut?
Well, Frelick, 23 years old in his major league debut. I guess it's okay. That may be a little old. Major League Baseball has that. But Tony, he went 3 for 3. I love this particular hit where he hits them where they ain't. This is what baseball's supposed to be about. That first hit, little pool cue shot off the end of the bat to the opposite side of the field, beats the shift, and these catches against the wall. There's one, and he makes another one. And he saves extra base hits twice there, maybe a home run on one of them. I'm going to say the field. I just think if he's that kind of slap hitter, that will impress people for a long time. You make contact and you hit them where they ain't. You can stick around the major leagues for a while.
It's an unbelievably great debut.
Yes, it is.
It's just fabulous. He gets 3 hits. They're ground singles, but so what? I mean, they're all hits. He has the sacrifice fly that brings in what turns out to be the winning run. And he makes the two great plays in the field, denying, I think, at least one run. I think the second one is going out.
Run, yeah.
So if I have to pick, I'd probably say defense. What I loved about the whole thing, he's a first-round pick out of Boston College. So the Red Sox probably are smashing their heads against the wall that they don't have him. His father was there. His brother was there. His sister was there. Friends of the family were there. And after the game, what the kid says is, my mom was home with the dog. She'll be here tomorrow. How great is that? His mom was home with the dog.
That's pretty good.
Instead of going to the kid's Major League debut.
I can admire him today, tomorrow, or starting tonight. I'm rooting against him. The Brewers.
I understand.
I hate the Brewers.
I understand that's
Brewers
your division.
and the Reds. I need a split of that series.
Enough email. Let's take one last break. Still to come, some good news for Jimmy G.
And are the Reds, speaking of, suddenly back to being who some people hope they'd be? Not me.
If you're the Angels, you put everybody but Trout out there and say, who do you want, and give us something we want.
Yeah.
That's what you
Sure.
do.
Be aggressive.
Try to win.
Get it done.
Yeah. No point in tanking. It's not the way it works.
Tonight on SportsCenter at 6 Eastern, NFL running backs are banding together. What does it mean for potential holdouts and future contracts? Plus, what will it take for Dan Campbell and the Lions to meet expectations as their camp gets underway? And countdown to the MLB trade deadline. What does the future hold for Shohei Ohtani and the Angels? SportsCenter, 6 Eastern on ESPN.
Happy time, people. Happy 65th birthday, Joe Barry Carroll. Carroll was the overall #1 pick of the 1980 NBA draft by the Golden State Warriors. He was a 7-foot center out of Purdue. He was a fine NBA player, averaging 17.7 and 7.7 rebounds over the course of 10 years. But it was how the Warriors got Carroll that tells the tale. The Celtics had the #1 pick. They traded it to Golden State for Robert Parrish and the #3 overall pick, who turned out to be Kevin McHale. Those Celtics got 2/3 of the greatest front court in NBA history for Carroll. A few years ago, the Celtics traded the #1 pick to the 76ers, who took Markelle Fultz, leaving the Celtics to draft Jason Tatum at #3. History repeats?
It may be the most ill-advised trade in NBA history. Tony, I got to watch Joe Barry Carroll in college because I was an intern in Lafayette, Indiana, and I would go over to Purdue to watch the games. People hated him. They turned his initials, JBC, into Joe Barely Cares. He wasn't terrible. He wasn't a bust. But Parrish and McHale? Oh, my God.
Yeah. Yeah, and they get there and they say hello to Larry Bird.
Yeah.
How does that work out? Happy anniversary, George Brett. On this day 40 years ago, the eventual first ballot Hall of Famer had his 2-run 9th-inning go-ahead home run off Goose Gossage invalidated by home plate umpire Tim McClellan. Yankee manager Billy Martin had successfully challenged that the pine tar on Brett's bat covered more than the allowed 18 inches. Brett charged out of the dugout like a maniac to argue, but his protestations were to no avail. The umps ruled Brett out, ending the game as a 4-3 Yankee win. The Royals then protested the game, and AL President Lee MacPhail restored the home run, and KC held on for their 5-4 win when the final inning was played a month later.
This is one of my favorite baseball episodes of all time. The whole 140-plus years of baseball history. No one has ever charged out of a dugout harder than George Brett.
No.
I mean, you loved George Brett and you hated Billy Martin.
Yeah.
That worked out okay for you,
Yeah.
didn't it?
It did, down the line, a month later. Happy trails to the last of Michael Phelps' swimming records. 22-year-old Frenchman Léon Marchand broke Phelps' record in the 400-meter individual medley yesterday at the World Championships in Japan. That record was set in the 2008 Olympics in Beijing and was Phelps' last remaining record. Marchand, hope I did that right, Daniel Light, swims at Arizona State, and may be a hometown superstar at the 2024 Olympics in Paris. Katie Ledecky plans to compete in Paris as well. As Phelps is the greatest male swimmer ever, Ledecky is the greatest female swimmer ever.
Amen.
Yesterday, she finished second in the 400-meter freestyle to Australia's Ariarne Titmus, who set a world record in that event.
Listen, catching Phelps and catching Ledecky, that's historic stuff. That's all-time greatness. But wake me when someone breaks Usain Bolt's records. Wake me when that happens. I don't think it's going to happen in our lifetimes. I don't.
I don't know. I mean, the other thing about that is, Mike, he eased off.
He coasted.
He eased off the gas the last
coast.
10 meters every race.
He did, but it's still out there, Tone. It's still out there.
I know, but that may be within reach within the next 10 years or so, I would think.
Wow.
We're running out of show. We go to the big finish.
Let's do
the
it.
U.S. women won their first World Cup match Friday night over Vietnam 3-0. Were you impressed?
Not really. It was 2-0 for like 80 minutes. And look, they got to play a lot better in their next game, Wednesday, 9 p.m. against the Netherlands. That's a real game. Netherlands a threat to win the whole thing. Jimmy Garoppolo passed his physical. Is that a big deal?
Yeah, he gets a real contract from the Raiders, and now we start the clock as to when he gets hurt and can't play again,
that's
which
cool.
happens every year. Aaron Judge faced live pitching in a simulated game yesterday. Your thoughts?
He didn't put a ball in play, so I have no thoughts. 16 pitches, fouled off 4. The Titans are going to wear old Oilers throwbacks twice this fall. You like that?
Yeah, that's their heritage. Be proud of your past. They started as the Houston Oilers.
Yeah.
Sure, wear them. Last one, the Reds have won 5 straight, start a 3-gamer in Milwaukee tonight. Your head must be exploding. You hate both teams. Is
Yeah.
it significant?
I need both teams to lose so the Cubs can catch one of them and start to work their way up in the wild card race. I guess I need the Reds to win 2 out of 3. How about that? But it is a significant series, Tom. Not in the East.
We're out of time. We'll try and do better the next time. Chris Lindsay, 5 birdies yesterday. Shout out.
I'm Mike Wilbon. Same time tomorrow, Knuckleheads. You can get the PTI podcast on the ESPN app or Apple Podcast. Tony, I hit balls yesterday for the first time in 6 months. I don't know what that means either.
Good for you.
And now,
Mon chant.
here's Sports
Mon
Center.
chant.